The town of Ridgewood was small, the kind of place where church bells rang on time, neighbors left pies on porches, and strangers were noticed before they even reached Main Street. Everyone knew each other's names, their stories, their secrets. So when Maya Turner arrived one quiet Tuesday in early spring, people talked. She was quiet, reserved, always wearing her late father's old police jacket, the faded K9 unit patch still stitched on the sleeve, frayed at the edges, but never removed. Every morning she walked alone down the sidewalk, her boots clicking softly against the pavement, her shadow trotting beside her, a massive German shepherd with eyes that held the weight of duty. No one knew much about her past, only whispers, that her father, Sergeant Daniel Turner, had been a decorated officer who died in the line of duty during a botched bank robbery 5 years ago, that he'd left behind a daughter, a medal, and his retired K9 partner, Shadow. To Maya, Shadow wasn't just a dog, he was family. The last living piece of the man who'd taught her to stand tall, speak truth, and never back down, even when you're afraid. She kept to herself, avoiding crowds, noise, anything that felt too loud. But in towns like Ridgewood, silence attracts attention, and soon, unwanted eyes began to follow her. Men who mistook quiet for weakness, who didn't understand that the girl they saw as fragile carried a legacy in her bones, and walked with a guardian no one dared provoke. It was only a matter of time before fate and cruelty collided in a way the town would never forget. Sunday afternoons in Ridgewood were usually peaceful. Church let out around noon. Families gathered at Henderson's Diner for pie and coffee. Kids rode bikes down Elm Street with no helmets and wide grins. But that day, the peace shattered the moment the motorcycles roared into town. Maya had only wanted a cup of coffee, just 10 minutes of warmth before the long walk home. She stepped into the diner, Shadow at her heels, his presence enough to make the usual chatter dip for a beat. But then, from the corner booth, came the laugh. "Look who wandered in," Rick Dalton drawled, not bothering to lower his voice. Rick wasn't from Ridgewood. He was the kind of man towns like this tried to forget. Leather jacket, grease in his hair, a crooked grin that never reached his eyes. He ran with a crew of bikers who passed through every few months, loud, reckless, always testing boundaries. And today, they'd found theirs. Maya kept her eyes down, ordering her coffee in a voice barely above a whisper. But Rick stood, blocking the counter. "You think you're better than us, huh?" he sneered, gesturing to her father's jacket. "Daddy's little princess?" The diner fell silent. Even the coffee machine stopped dripping. "I just want to leave," Maya said, clutching her cup. Rick stepped closer. "Then you'll have to go through me." Laughter erupted, cruel, sharp, echoing off the walls like breaking glass. Maya turned and walked out, Shadow close behind. But the moment she stepped into the parking lot, the rumble of boots followed. Rick and his crew fanned out around her, boots scraping against the gravel, chains clinking like warning bells. The old church loomed behind them, its stained glass windows watching in silent judgment. "Thought you could just walk away, sweetheart?" Rick taunted, circling her like a vulture. Maya's hands shook, but her voice didn't. "Please, I don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" Rick laughed. "You brought it here. He snatched her backpack, spilling its contents across the asphalt. Notebooks, a dog-eared photo of her father in uniform, and a small silver badge, her father's service medal. One of the bikers crushed the photo under his boot. "Daddy's little hero," he mocked. Tears welled in Maya's eyes, but she didn't look away. "That's enough." Rick leaned in, his breath reeking of whiskey. "What are you gonna do? Call your daddy?" The men laughed again, and then everything went still. A deep, low growl rolled through the air, so powerful it cut through their laughter like thunder. The bikers froze. From the tree line, Shadow emerged. He wasn't running. He wasn't barking. He walked, slow, deliberate, muscles coiled beneath his fur. His eyes locked on Rick, unblinking, his tail stiff, his ears forward. The parking lot fell into thick. You could hear Maya's heartbeat. "Well, look what we have here," Rick said, forcing a grin. "Your mutt come to play hero?" But his voice trembled. Shadow moved forward, stopping just inches from Maya, placing himself between her and the threat. His lips curled, revealing teeth that had once taken down armed suspects. A warning. A promise. Maya's voice cracked. "Shadow, it's okay. I'm fine." But Shadow didn't move. Rick, desperate to save face, took a step forward. "Back off, dog!" It was a mistake. In one fluid motion, Shadow lunged, powerful, precise, trained. He slammed Rick to the ground, massive paws pinning his shoulders, jaws hovering just above his throat. Not biting, just waiting. The other bikers froze. "Call him off!" one shouted. But Maya didn't need to. Shadow growled, a low, controlled rumble that said everything. "I won't hurt you, but I will end you if you try again." For the first time, Rick understood. This girl was not alone. Sirens wailed in the distance. A bystander had filmed the whole thing. Within minutes, patrol cars screeched into the lot, red and blue lights flashing across stunned faces. Officers rushed in, shouting commands. Shadow stood his ground, still hovering protectively over Maya. "Easy, boy," she whispered, placing a hand on his back. He let out a soft whine and stepped aside. Rick and his crew were cuffed, faces pale with humiliation. "We were just joking," one muttered. The lead officer shook his head. "You call that a joke?" Then another officer approached, eyes widening at the sight of the German shepherd. He knelt, brushing his hand over Shadow's collar. The old canine tag was still there, scratched, but legible. Shadow, Ridgewood Police Unit. The crowd gasped. The officer looked at Maya with newfound respect. "This is Sergeant Turner's dog, isn't it?" "Your father's." Maya nodded, tears spilling over. The officer smiled softly. "Your dad trained one of the best dogs this town's ever seen. Looks like he's still doing his job." As Rick was dragged away, the town watched in awe. The story spread faster than wildfire. By nightfall, the video had gone viral. "Hero K9 saves young woman from biker gang." Headlines called it the most heart-stopping moment of the year. Back in Ridgewood, everything changed. The same people who'd whispered about Maya now smiled when she passed. Children ran to pet Shadow. Shopkeepers left water bowls and treats on their porches. The sheriff's department held a ceremony, honoring both Maya and Shadow for bravery. That evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Maya walked to the cemetery on the edge of town. Shadow walked beside her, tail swaying gently. She knelt at her father's grave, brushing snow from the headstone. "I did it, Dad," she whispered. "He protected me, just like you taught him to." Shadow pressed against her side, warm and solid. The wind rustled through the pines, carrying her words into the night. Some heroes never wear capes, and some never leave our side. Loyalty doesn't end with death. It's passed on to those strong enough to carry it forward. And with that, Maya and Shadow walked into the fading light. A girl, her guardian, bound by love, and a legacy that would never be forgotten. Maya knelt at her father's grave, snow melting under her knees. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying her words into the night. "I did it, Dad. He protected me, just like you taught him to." Shadow sat close, pressing against her side, his warm presence a silent promise. "You're not alone. Some heroes never wear capes, and some never leave our side. Loyalty doesn't end with death. It's passed on to those strong enough to carry it forward." As they walked home under the fading light, the town watched in quiet awe. The same people who'd once whispered about the quiet girl in the police jacket now smiled with pride. Children ran to pet Shadow. Shopkeepers left treats on their porches. The sheriff's department even held a ceremony, honoring both Maya and Shadow for their bravery. But the real victory wasn't the medals or the headlines. It was the way Shadow's tail wagged when Maya laughed, the way he slept at the foot of her bed, ears twitching at every sound, the way he still stopped at the old church every Sunday as if to remind the world, "I'm still on duty." Weeks turned into months. Shadow's scars faded. Maya's shoulders straightened, and the town of Ridgewood learned a lesson it would never forget. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a growl in the snow. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of violet and gold, Maya sat on the porch with Shadow at her feet. She pulled out her father's old service medal, the one Rick had crushed under his boot, and held it gently in her palm. "He'd be proud of you," a voice said. Maya turned. It was Officer Reynolds, the one who'd recognized Shadow's canine tag. He stood at the edge of the yard, hands in his pockets, eyes soft. "He trained one of the best," Reynolds said, "but I think you trained him to be even better." Maya smiled. "He taught me too, how to stand tall, how to never back down." Reynolds nodded. "Your dad would have loved that." As he walked away, Shadow lifted his the man until he disappeared down the street. Then he rested his chin on Maya's knee, eyes full of quiet understanding. She scratched behind his ears. "We're okay, boy. We're home." And for the first time since her father died, Maya believed it. Years later, they'd still be seen walking Main Street every morning. Maya in her father's jacket, Shadow beside her, tail wagging like a metronome keeping time with her heartbeat. Strangers would stop and ask, "Is that the dog from the story?" And Maya would smile and say, "That's Shadow, my hero." Because some bonds aren't broken by death. They're forged in it. And some guardians never stop watching.